Hey, welcome. This is a little video on Juno in the first house. So again, the first house is here. So if you have Juno in this little slice of pie, you have Juno in the first house. And the first house is the house of self and body and identity and vitality. Juno in the first house might signify someone who expresses themselves in any of the ways that we've learned that Juno did. So from Queen of Heaven to divine consort to betrayed partner. One might resonate with those that have been left, forgotten, and abused, fighting for the rights of women and femmes. May come to understand oneself more fully once in a committed partnership. So those are just some notes. What I really want to say is, I have Juno in the first house. And for a really long time, I just didn't get it because I was like, I don't care about being married. I don't feel like I'm the divine consort. I don't feel like I'm that partner. And then it was like really through studying her myths and understanding her history, or the history of Juno and her iterations, could I see that it wasn't about being it's not like having, well, I won't say that. I was going to say it's not like having Venus in the first house, but that depends on what your Venus is like. But having Juno in the first house might make you that person. It might make you somebody who's really beautiful and really attractive to other people and really needing to partner and reflect and be reflected by partnership. But it doesn't have to be. So for me, I resonated much more with the Juno who has been betrayed, who feels a relationship to those that have been betrayed, or those who are underserved in this system, or in this community, in the way the world works, and also the protectress of women and femmes, and that kind of feeling. I mean, I've always been somebody who's been very feminist in my way of seeing the world, and so when I understood that, I was like, oh, Juno in my first house, got it. And then personally, when I got married, which was something that kind of sprung up on me, like I didn't foresee it coming. It really happened quite quickly. It was an amazing, moment in my life, but I had no inkling to get married. I had no desire to get married. And after we did the ceremony, after we were married, I felt so, and I think everybody, that does get married will say this, but for me, it was a profound shift and an understanding of another part of myself that I had never had access to. So there was something about the commitment being, and I know everybody doesn't need to get married. That's absolute for sure. Commitments come in all shapes and sizes. For me personally, and I don't mean that anybody with Juno in the first house has to have a legal ceremony, but for me personally, it did something. It solidified something. It dropped something into place for me. I needed that kind of legality, or that kind of that paper. I needed the paper that had all the people witnessing it, and I didn't even know I needed it until after it happened. I was shocked. So the process of marriage, the process of the ceremony of it, and all the things leading up to it and coming after it was hugely changing for me in terms of how I saw myself in the world. And so I offer that as my experience, and maybe it resonates with you if you've got Juno in the first house. But all of the ways that Juno shows up, and of course Juno is like, I was going to say bedazzled. Like she's got, she's beautiful. She's jewels in the way she dresses, and she knows how to attract her desired consort to her, we could say. So there could be that aspect of your personality. There could be also and remember the sign of your Juno is really important. And then remember the aspect of wanting to be the protectress of those that have been betrayed and abused and neglected, especially women and femmes of all kinds. So take that into consideration when you look at Juno in your first house. The example chart I have is Alexis Arquette. So Alexis Arquette passed away last year, I believe. Yeah, she passed away, I think about 9 months ago or so. She's the sister of David Arquette and Rosanna Arquette and all the Arquettes. There's a lot of them. I'm forgetting one really famous one. Anyways, you know who I'm talking about. And Alexis, transitioned in her early 20s, I believed. And so she was an actress. She was in a time, like she started acting in 1982. She was 12 then. And as she was acting, she was acting first as like a female impersonator before she transitioned to becoming, before she became a woman, or before she transitioned, to becoming a woman. And so she had, like, she's been in a million things. I think she has like 70 appearances. But one of the things that she said, and her siblings reiterated, was that she, wanted to always, of course, give dignity and respect to her characters that she played, but she had such a hard time finding roles for trans women that had dignity and respect, or just to be hired as an actress in general was a real feat for her, and she struggled with that. And so she was definitely someone who spoke out for trans rights and for other trans women. And so we can see that archetype of Juno as the protectress of women functioning in her first house. And then, only she could answer this. Maybe her siblings could answer it. But in terms of being the part of Juno that doesn't feel validated as the woman that she is, or validated as the partner that she is supposed to be, having a husband who cheats on her, and so feeling like feeling disrespected, feeling her femininity disrespected. I don't know if Alexis Arquette would have said that was her experience, but certainly from what she said about being in the industry, an industry that's so capitalistic and not very compassionate to people, I would think I would assume that. I could be totally wrong, but that would be one of the questions I might ask if I was doing a reading with her. Was to say, like, how does that? Do you have that feeling of being the one that's kind of jilted and not respected for your talent, for your power, right? For your beauty. Not that we want to be respected for our beauty, but you know what I mean. Okay. And it's in Capricorn. So, she's business. She made money she made money through her personality, through her persona. It's in the first house. But she definitely carries that queendom, that Juno nature with her and her identity. The next person is Carrie Fisher. Also in Capricorn, interestingly. Carrie Fisher, of course, was Princess Leia. It was one of her first big roles. So Princess Leia, so it's not Queen of the Heavens, but it's Princess of Star Wars. So it's out there in space, in the stars, and she's the princess. And so she was the, epitome of, I don't know, Trekkie passion. like she was, when you watch her documentary, like her one woman show, it's not a documentary, but it's her on stage doing her one woman show right before she died, really, I think, like maybe a year before she passed. She talks about like men coming up to her, until the end of her life, being like, wow, I fantasize about you every day for 25 years. So she was this like fantasy object, Juno type of archetype. And yet, of course, she lived a very different experience, because who would actually live that experience? But she was very open about battling and working through addictions and mental illness. We can see that the ruler of her ascendant is in the 12th house, right by the North Node. Very intense situation. So to battle with manic depression, was that what it was? No, sorry. Bipolar disorder. that is very much that kind of signature. But also, and she was, of course, the wife of Paul Simon, or he was the husband of Carrie Fisher. She had, that famous marriage that I'm sure at that point in her career might have been important in that day and age. But she goes from being the ideal woman, the ideal archetype of, femininity, to then just being a human and being a very outspoken person about sexism in the industry and misogyny and the unrealistic expectation of women not ever being able to age or be human, and really shows like this other side. And so she's not afraid to be the one who's screaming from the rooftops about injustice and the unholy nature of the standards that we hold women up to. And so that was her Juno, like we all will do Juno differently. But, and of course, there's a whole chart here to explore. But I thought those two examples were really fascinating. And they both, it's in Capricorn. So Capricorn's about how we utilize things. And so they both Alexis and Carrie, utilize their Juno, their femininity, their way of being and wanting to be a woman in the world they utilize it, meaning that's a Capricorn kind of key phrase, to be themselves and to manifest themselves in the world, and made money off of it. Okay, so if you have Juno in the first house, think about what that means for you, how that might sit in your life. What's the sign? What's the style of it? How do you embody Juno? And again, there's all those different phases of Juno. There's all those different articulations of Juno. And maybe you articulate a part of it for a little while, and then you get to experience another part of Juno, and then another part. And then also think about which parts you'd like to experience that maybe you haven't yet. Have you experienced the rage part? That's not the fun part to experience, but it's an important part because it's a part of our being able to individuate, right? Like Juno gets enraged, and so she's allowing herself to know that she's being mistreated. Do you allow yourself to know that you're being mistreated when you are? Is that a part of your story? Do you also get to move past that into some sort of union with your work, or with a spouse, or with a mate, with a partner? And what are all those stories? So do a little digging and thinking, and if you want, write in the comment section about what you've explored. All right, lots of love. Bye for now.